My name is Malcolm Ryland, and what I'm about to share with you is something I never imagined would happen. Not to me, not in a million years. On October 14th, 2022, I died for several minutes following a sudden cardiac arrest. During those few minutes, I witnessed something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Something so horrifying, so spiritually intense, that it shook the very core of everything I thought I believed. I saw hell. I saw torment. I saw 12 people I recognized, celebrities, suffering in agony beyond human comprehension. But before I take you there, let me back up, because I wasn't always a believer. I wasn't a man of faith. Honestly, before this happened, I thought I was doing pretty well in life. I worked in music licensing, negotiating contracts for commercials, films, and streaming platforms. A behind-the-scenes guy in the industry. I lived in Los Angeles, had a condo in Marina del Rey, a rotation of so-called friends, and a spiritual but not religious outlook. You know the type. Crystals on the windowsill, yoga in the mornings, manifesting success with positive vibes and vision boards. I believed in energy. I believed in karma. I believed that if I didn't murder anyone, and if I gave a charity now and then, the universe would reward me with a peaceful afterlife. That illusion shattered the day I collapsed on my kitchen floor. It was a Friday afternoon. I had just come back from a lunch meeting in Culver City. I remember walking into my apartment, kicking off my shoes, and grabbing a bottle of kombucha from the fridge. I felt this strange flutter in my chest, like a bird flapping once inside my rib cage. Then another. Then everything went black. No pain, just nothing. Next thing I knew, I was floating. I looked down and saw myself, my body, sprawled out on the tiles. My phone was on the floor next to me. The screen cracked. My eyes were half open, mouth agape. I looked dead, but I didn't feel dead. I felt hyper alive. It was as if I'd stepped out of a wetsuit and could finally breathe. I hovered above my body, then began to drift upward. Not flying, more like being pulled. The air around me thickened into darkness. Not a peaceful darkness, but a pressing one. Heavy, alive. I began to feel the shift, the drop in spiritual temperature. Something was wrong. At first, I tried to convince myself this was just a lucid dream, maybe a coma hallucination. I'd seen videos about near-death experiences. Most were all light and peace. But this wasn't light. It was cold. And then I heard it, screaming. Not human screams, not entirely. They were twisted, layered with a frequency I can't explain. A wail that drilled into your soul, like grief stretched into eternity. It wasn't one scream, it was thousands, millions, maybe. The darkness broke open like a canyon splitting in two, and I was suddenly pulled into what I can only describe as a realm of spiritual decay. Imagine every color drained from reality. Imagine silence, then sound, then silence again in a rhythm meant to break your mind. I wasn't walking. I was falling through dimensions. And then I landed, not with a thud, more like being absorbed into the floor of this place. The ground was alive. It pulsed with heat and hatred. The air burned my lungs, though I wasn't breathing. The walls, or what I thought were walls, moved like skin stretched across bone. And everywhere there was pain, tangible, loud, suffocating. I couldn't see anyone at first, only shadows. But then the light shifted and I saw the first face. It was someone I recognized immediately. A face I'd seen countless times on magazine covers, in movie trailers, on stage accepting awards. I won't say the name, not here, but believe me when I say, it was him. His body was contorted, as if the weight of regret and sorrow had twisted him into a grotesque version of himself. His mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. His eyes locked with mine, and I saw awareness. He knew me. He knew I was there. And in his gaze, I saw a desperate plea. Tell them. Please tell them. I stumbled backward. Or at least I tried to. There was no gravity, no orientation. The space was chaos wrapped in suffering. Then I saw the second. And the third, familiar faces, famous people, global icons, some still alive in the world of the living, their public image preserved in high definition, others gone for years, immortalized on T-shirts and tribute albums. But here there was no stage, no glam, no applause, only torment. Each of them was isolated, not chained together in some grotesque dungeon, but separated, alone in their suffering. And yet I could feel the common thread. Fame had failed them. Legacy was meaningless. Followers? Useless. Awards? Irrelevant. They had traded their souls for what the world calls success. Then a voice spoke, not from beside me, but from within me. It wasn't booming. It didn't echo. It was the purest clarity I've ever known. They knew me not. They chose the praise of man over the mercy of God. Their names were known on earth, but not in heaven. I wanted to run, to scream, to wake up, but I couldn't. I was being shown something, and I had to see it through. The fourth, fifth, and sixth faces came quickly. All people I had admired, watched, even envied. Their expressions weren't just pain. They were confused, like they had arrived here shocked. Many still wore expressions like they were waiting for the cameras to roll again. One looked at me with a blank stare and whispered something I'll never forget. We thought we'd live forever in them, in their memory. But no one down here remembers us. Fame doesn't follow you into the fire. And then came the seventh. Her face broke me. She had been an icon of strength and independence in pop culture, a woman millions adored. But here she was weeping, not just from pain, but from realization that it was too late, that all the platforms, all the empowering speeches, the red carpets, the fierce persona, none of it could touch her here. She looked straight through me and said, I sang about freedom, but I never knew the one who gave it. At that moment, the voice returned, stronger this time. 12. You will see 12. That is all. That is enough. I knew then that I was being warned, not just informed. This wasn't a voyeuristic tour. This was a prophetic message. I didn't want to see more. 7 faces were already etched into my mind, burning like fire I couldn't put out. Faces the world had worshipped. People I had admired. Their fame, their confidence, their carefully cultivated personas shattered in this place. Hell didn't care about their Wikipedia pages. It didn't care about legacy, awards, or influence. It revealed what fame had hidden. But I had to see 5 more. That's what the voice said. 12. That is all. That is enough. The 8th figure came out of the shadows like smoke forming into flesh. I didn't recognize him at first. His back was turned, and he was seated on what looked like a throne of crumbling statues, pieces of himself. Broken faces, shattered trophies, broken gold-plated records. He was weeping, but not for others, for himself. He kept whispering over and over, "They loved me. They loved me. Why didn't that count? Why didn't that count?" His hands were clutching a piece of paper, burning endlessly but never consumed. I could see words forming and dissolving on it. Song lyrics, quotes from interviews, screaming headlines. It was everything he had been known for, everything people had celebrated. And here it was ash. The voice inside me spoke again. They traded eternity for applause. Their songs echoed in arenas, but not in heaven. He looked up, and I saw his face. A household name. One I had heard my whole life. One I had streamed just days before my heart stopped. I felt sick. I wanted to wake up. But I couldn't. I was being shown what truth looked like, stripped of filters. Then came the 9th. She stood alone in a pit, not flames, but shame. That was her prison. I could feel it like radiation. She was cloaked in something that looked like a wedding dress, but it was torn, blood-stained, and soaked in some kind of black sludge that stuck to her hands every time she tried to wipe it off. She kept murmuring the same line. I told them I was fine. I told them I had peace. But she had none. Her public persona had been all about self-love, empowerment, and freedom. But here, she was chained by lies, the lies she spoke and the lies she believed. Every time she said peace, a loud shriek echoed back from the walls, mocking her. I felt her torment, the deception she had lived in, how she had built an empire on false hope and brought millions with her, not because she hated God, but because she never needed him. She was her own God. The voice said, "Peace without me is a myth. Truth without me is a lie. Wholeness without me is a wound that never stops bleeding." I fell to my knees, if you could call it that in this place. The weight of the atmosphere pushed me lower. I didn't just feel sadness. I felt the judgment of righteousness. It was holy, pure, but heavy, not cruel, but final. There was no debate here, no protest, only clarity. Then came the 10th. He didn't scream. He didn't weep. He just sat in silence, motionless, head tilted, as if in a trance. His eyes were open but blind. I tried to step closer, but the air around him warped, like heat rising from pavement. The closer I got, the more confused I became. My thoughts scattered. My memories blurred. It felt like standing in a fog of spiritual anesthesia. Then I heard a whisper, but not from him, from the air around him. He spoke in riddles. He led them into confusion. He offered no path, only questions, and they followed him into the fog. I understood. He had been a philosopher of sorts, not officially, but his platform was full of spiritual musings and moral gray zones. He asked questions that poke holes in faith, but offered no hope. His words sounded deep, enlightened, even wise, but they led nowhere. He hadn't declared evil, but he had removed the clarity of good, and in doing so, he became a shepherd of confusion. And here he was surrounded by it eternally. I backed away, my spirit buckling under the weight of these visions. That's when the voice said, "You must see the 11th. She appeared younger than the others, probably because she had died young. A rising star, social media influencer, reality TV. Her face had been on every screen for years. But here there was no fame, no filters. Her once glamorous appearance was replaced by something hollow, emptiness. Her eyes darted in every direction, like she was searching for something that would never appear. And she kept repeating, "They said I was special. They said I was beautiful. Where are they now? Where are they now?" She had been addicted, not just to substances, but to attention. Her soul had been wired to the dopamine of digital worship. The likes, the views, the brand deals. She thought her influence made her immortal, but she had never known the one who truly saw her, the one who gave her value before the followers. The voice was soft this time. "They worship her, but she never worshiped me. Now she walks in darkness, unseen." And then came the 12th. He didn't look tormented. He looked angry, furious, still full of defiance, still trying to be in control. I recognized him instantly. One of the most powerful media moguls in the world. A man who shaped public thought, influenced elections, created empires. He had been a king in this world, a god almost, and here he was pacing in a circle forever, talking to himself, plotting something that would never happen, trying to build something with ashes. And every time he lifted a piece of what he thought was material, it crumbled in his hands. He shouted into the void, "I built legacy. I built empire. I built my own name." And the voice thundered, "Yes, but you never built the kingdom." A silence fell over everything. It was finished. 12. I fell to the ground and wept. The weeping wasn't just sorrow. It was a tearing of my soul. I realized in that moment I had idolized these people. I had played their music, watched their films, reposted their quotes, tried to imitate their style. I had filled my life with their voices, but not his. And now I had seen where that road led. That's when the light appeared. Not a blinding spotlight, but a gentle warmth in the distance. A doorway, a presence. I turned toward it, and that's when I heard his voice. It wasn't like the others. It didn't shake me with judgment. It restored me with truth. "You were not meant to stay here. I let you see, so you could tell. Return. Warn them. Tell them I never knew those names. But I want to know theirs." Then I woke up. I woke up gasping. Not a peaceful return. Not some movie moment with angels and soft music. It was violent, like being yanked from underwater after almost drowning. My chest heaved. My throat burned. I screamed before I even opened my eyes. Bright lights, blurry shapes, monitors beeping. I could hear a nurse yelling for the doctor. "He's back, he's conscious." Then came the pain. Not physical, spiritual. My soul felt like it had been set on fire and shoved back into my fragile, sinful body. I could still feel the screams. I could still see their faces, those 12 celebrities forever suspended in torment. Their cries echoed in my skull like sirens I couldn't shut off. They were real. They were there. And I had seen it. The next few hours were a haze. They ran every test. Brain scans, blood work, oxygen levels. Apparently, I had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest, likely triggered by a rare, undiagnosed arrhythmia. They called it a miracle that I was alive at all. They said I had been flatlined for nearly 4 minutes before the EMTs shocked me back. But no machine could measure what had changed inside me. My brother Liam came to the hospital that night. He lived in Pasadena and was the closest relative I had left. He brought my phone, charger, and a change of clothes. I asked him to sit down. I told him I needed to talk. I didn't know how to begin, so I just blurted it out. I saw hell. I saw celebrities. 12 of them. They were suffering. He froze, half sitting, half standing. What? I repeated it, slower this time. Liam, I died. I left my body. I was taken to a place, and I saw 12 famous people in torment. I think it was hell. He blinked, then laughed. Mal, come on. You had a cardiac arrest. That's your brain misfiring. Hallucinations. That doesn't mean it was real. But it was real, I said. I've never seen anything like it. It was more vivid than this conversation right now. Liam frowned. You've been working in entertainment for how long? You're around this stuff constantly. Maybe your subconscious was. No, I cut him off. Don't explain it away. Please, just listen. He didn't. He changed the subject, asked about my heart, my recovery, when I'd be discharged. I tried to talk again, but he looked at me like I was unstable. I could feel it, the wall going up. He loved me, sure, but he couldn't handle the truth of what I was saying. Most people couldn't. I was discharged 3 days later. My physical body was healing, but inside, I was completely undone. I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. For the first time in my life, I felt eternity pressing against my chest. I opened my laptop and deleted every single celebrity playlist I had, the award show subscriptions, the gossip channels, the old photos, everything that connected me to the culture of worshiping people who had no idea what they were headed toward. I felt like I was grieving idols I didn't know I had. For days, I barely left the house. I just read the Bible, something I hadn't done in years. I didn't understand most of it, but I couldn't stop. My soul was starving for truth, for light. I would wake up at 3 a.m. in cold sweats, whispering the names I'd seen, begging God to let me forget. But I wasn't supposed to forget. I was supposed to warn. So I tried. I called my friend Sam. He worked as a tour manager for one of the biggest pop artists in the country. He and I used to party together on the road. I told him what I saw. Told him I was done with the industry. Told him I was serious. He laughed in my face. Bro, you've been out of it too long. That coma messed you up. Celebs in hell? That's wild. You're better off selling that story to Netflix. Then he hung up. I texted an old ex, a singer I had dated during a music festival circuit. I warned her that fame wasn't worth it, that we were all being fed lies, that I had seen where this road ends. She replied one word: blocked. I could have taken it personally, but I didn't. I wasn't angry. I was heartbroken because I had been like them. I had laughed at Christians, rolled my eyes at sermons. I'd said things like, only God can judge me, without realizing that when he does, it's final. The world wants light, but not the source. They want peace, but not repentance. We worship actors and influencers while ignoring the only one who can rescue us from eternal ruin. And that's when I realized hell is not full of evil people. Hell is full of people who rejected the truth. I started walking to a local church near my apartment. It was small, hardly anyone there on Sundays, but the pastor was kind. He looked me in the eyes like he actually cared. I told him what I had seen. I expected him to correct me, tell me I was exaggerating, misled. But he didn't. He nodded. Then he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes God lets a man touch hell so he can become a voice to those walking toward it. He prayed with me, gave me a battered old Bible, told me to start in Matthew. I devoured it like a starving man. The more I read, the more I understood. Jesus didn't come to make us spiritual. He came to save us from eternal separation. He didn't die so we could feel good. He died because we were all on the same path as those 12. Every one of us. I was too, and I realized I should have been the 13th. But he spared me, not because I deserved it, not because I had a good heart, but because of mercy, pure, undeserved mercy. And now all I can do is speak, warn, plead. I started writing down my testimony. I posted a simple video online, not naming anyone, not pointing fingers, just telling the truth, that I had died and that hell was real and that fame meant nothing when the fire came. At first, no one paid attention. Then, slowly, comments started to pour in. Are you sure it wasn't a dream? Sound like fear-mongering to me. God is love. This doesn't sound like love. But then came others. I've been feeling something similar. I had a dream like this too. I think God is trying to wake us up. And that's when I realized this story wasn't mine to protect. It was God's to use. It's a strange thing, learning how to live again after you've already died. I wasn't just trying to recover from a physical collapse. I was recovering from a spiritual resurrection. Everything I once valued fell hollow. The industry that used to thrill me now looked like a stage play for lost souls. The people I used to envy, award winners, influencers, cultural icons, now made my stomach turn. Not because I hated them, but because I pitied them, because I had seen what was waiting. And once you've seen it, really seen it, you can't go back. But leaving the world isn't easy, especially when it's in your blood. My phone kept lighting up with messages from former clients, publicists, collaborators asking where I'd gone. I ignored most of them. I didn't know how to explain what had happened to me without sounding crazy. And every time I tried, I was either mocked or dismissed. But the silence of my life was starting to make room for something else. The voice of God. It started small, a whisper in prayer, a verse that leapt off the page, a moment during worship at the tiny church I'd begun attending, where my heart would suddenly burn and I'd know He's here. Then came the dreams. They were nothing like the NDE. No darkness, no torment, just clarity, and messages that rang with the same weight as truth itself. In the first dream, I was standing in front of a giant wall covered in golden plaques. Each plaque had a name engraved on it. Some I recognized, some I didn't. I reached out to touch one, and it crumbled into dust. Behind the wall was a door. A voice said, "These names were famous on earth, but not one is written in my book." I woke up with tears soaking my pillow. Another night, I dreamed of a massive concert, a stadium full of people cheering as smoke machines blew and lights flashed. On stage was a performer I knew well, someone I had once negotiated deals for. But as she sang, her mouth was sewn shut. Still the crowd cheered. I looked around and realized they weren't cheering her. They were cheering the silence. And I knew what it meant. The world is clapping for deception, for spiritual silence, for distractions that mute the truth. God was showing me how deep this deception runs. It's not just the celebrities. It's not just the influencers. It's the entire system, a web of idolatry that keeps people sedated while their souls slip further into darkness. And I had been a part of it. That realization wrecked me. I spent hours repenting, days fasting, nights praying on my knees, asking Jesus to purify me, to scrub every trace of the old Malcolm out of me, not just a career, but the pride, the ego, the approval addiction, the casual compromise. And He began to answer. I remember one night clearly. I had turned off all the lights in my apartment. No music, no TV, just me, the floor, and my Bible. I whispered, "Jesus, if you still want me, if you're not done with me, I'm yours, fully, no conditions." I felt Him, not a feeling like emotion, a presence, heavy, holy. My body shook as I wept. I felt like a child in the arms of someone who had every right to punish me, but chose to love me instead. It was in that moment I understood something I had missed my whole life. Jesus doesn't just save us from hell. He saves us from ourselves. The darkness I had witnessed, that realm where 12 souls still screamed, wasn't just hell. It was a full consequence of self-worship, of putting one's name, one's image, one's desires above the Creator. And I had done it, not on a global stage, not with Grammys or spotlights, but in my own quiet ways. Every time I chose career over conviction, every time I said universe instead of God because it sounded more trendy, every time I stayed silent when I could have spoken the truth, I was paving my own path to that same place. But grace intercepted me. I started attending Bible studies, even though I didn't understand half of what the others were saying. I kept to myself mostly, but I listened. One night, a woman named Rochelle, maybe in her 60s, turned to me and said, "You look like someone who's seen something." I nodded. "You have no idea." She smiled softly and said, "Don't keep it to yourself." That hit me because I was still hiding, still afraid of what people might say, still trying to protect my reputation in a world I was supposed to be leaving behind. But Jesus didn't bring me back to stay silent. He didn't show me 12 souls in torment just so I could go back to editing contracts. He gave me a message, a burden. So I started telling my story. Not online, not yet. I told it in person, at coffee shops, in Uber rides, at grocery stores when strangers made eye contact for half a second too long. I told baristas, neighbors, ex-girlfriends. I didn't tell them everything. Not at first. I didn't name the celebrities. That wasn't the point. The point was this. I died. I saw hell. It's real. And the only name that mattered there was Jesus. Some people laughed. Some walked away. But some listened. And a few wept. One guy, an audio engineer I used to work with, came over to hear the story and left 3 hours later on his knees, giving his life to Christ. Another woman, a makeup artist from Burbank, confessed she had secretly been reading the Bible in her car between sets. Too afraid to tell anyone. She thought she was going crazy. No, I told her, you're waking up. And that's the truth of it. People aren't crazy. They're convicted. They're hungry. But they've been told by this world to numb it, medicate it, mute it. But Jesus is turning up the volume. And I'm just a man holding the mic. But it wasn't all glory. With the calling came the warfare. I began having night terrors. Dark figures in my room. Suffocating dreams. Violent spiritual attacks. I felt like demons were furious that I had returned. Like I had escaped from something they believed they owned. One night, I awoke to a whisper so cold I couldn't move. Stay silent and you'll live a peaceful life. I sat up and said out loud, I'd rather die again than live for a lie. From that moment forward, the attack stopped. I had declared war, not on people, but on the system that keeps them enslaved. I've lost friends, lost opportunities, even lost my apartment eventually, but I've never been freer, because I now live with eternity in mind. And I'll never forget what he said to me in that final moment before I returned to Earth. Warn them. I never knew those names, but I want to know theirs. I wish I could tell you it got easier. That once I surrendered, once I said yes to Jesus, once I began warning others about what I saw, everything just fell into place. That people believed me, that lives changed, that the world welcomed the truth with open arms. But that's not how it happened. Obedience is costly. And the moment I stepped out publicly, everything changed. It started with a video. Just me, a phone, and a table. I didn't script it. I didn't plan it. I just hit record. The words spilled out like they had been burning in my bones for months. My name is Malcolm Ryland. I died on October 14th, 2022. I left my body. I saw hell. I saw 12 celebrities, people we admire, worship, imitate, in torment. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a metaphor. It was real. And I'm here to tell you none of the things we chase in this world will matter when we die. Only one thing matters. Do you know Jesus? I uploaded it and walked away. I didn't care if anyone watched it. I just knew I couldn't keep it any longer. But they did watch it. Within hours, the views started climbing. By midnight, it had over 100,000. By the next day, over 1 million. Comments flooded in. Some were curious. Some were kind. Some were cruel. You're insane. This is what religious trauma looks like. You just want clout. You're using God to get famous. So brave. I felt something when you spoke. I haven't cried in years. It was a tidal wave. Old friends texted me. Dude, what are you doing? A former client messaged. Please take it down. You're embarrassing yourself. An ex-girlfriend left a public comment saying I had always been emotionally unstable and that I was capitalizing on trauma. But in the midst of all the chaos, something holy started to rise. I received a DM from a 19-year-old named Jeremy. Just 2 sentences. I watched your video. I was planning to end my life this weekend, but I just got on my knees instead. Another message came from a woman in France. She wrote, I haven't prayed since I was a child, but after your story, I just got on the floor and begged God to forgive me. I want to know Jesus. One by one, the stories came. A rapper from Atlanta, a tattoo artist from Brazil, a high schooler in Ohio, a makeup influencer in Dubai, a nurse in the Philippines. All of them saying the same thing in different ways. Your story broke the illusion. I want truth. I was undone. It wasn't about me. It never had been. I wasn't the hero. I was the wreckage that Jesus had rebuilt. I was just a messenger. And yet, the warfare intensified. My Instagram was flagged. My YouTube demonetized. I was called a liar, a cult leader, a manipulator. Someone posted an old photo of me at a party years ago and said, this guy used to snort coke with producers. Now he's a prophet. They weren't wrong. I had been a wreck, a hypocrite, a hedonist. But that's the point. Jesus doesn't save the polished. He saved the lost. And I wasn't trying to sell religion. I was trying to rip the mask off eternal deception. I started getting invited to speak, not at conferences or mega churches, but in people's homes, living rooms, community centers, youth groups, rehab clinics. I never charged, never asked for offerings, never printed merch or wrote a book. I just told the truth. I showed them the scar on my chest from where they shocked me back. I told them about the 12 souls, the darkness, the screaming, the silence of fame and eternity, the voice that said, I never knew them. And something started happening. People began repenting, not performatively, not theatrically, but genuinely, quietly, in tears. People deleted porn. People threw away crystals. People stopped sleeping around. People apologized to their parents. People forgave abusers. People started over. It wasn't flashy. It was real. And I realized this is what revival looks like. Not stadiums. Not billboards. Not hashtags. Broken people being rebuilt. One by one. From the inside out. But it cost something. I lost most of my old friends. My reputation in the industry was gone. I was called a heretic and a legalist, sometimes in the same breath. Even Christians debated me online. Some said I shouldn't speak of hell. Others accused me of shaming the dead. Still others said I needed a platform or credentials to speak. But Jesus didn't give me a platform. He gave me a burden, and I couldn't stay quiet. One night, I was speaking to a small group of college students in San Diego, maybe 20 people. I told my story. I wept. Some of them wept too. Afterward, a girl approached me, maybe 21, long sleeves in the summer, eyes heavy with shame. She whispered, "I used to be a fan of one of the celebrities you mentioned. I worshipped her. She was my everything. I wanted to be her. I thought if I could be famous, I'd finally feel valuable. But I'm empty, and now I'm scared." I took her hand, looked her in the eyes, and said, "You don't need to be her. You need to be known by him." She collapsed in tears. That moment changed me because it showed me the other side of this generation, the side no one sees through the filters and followers and performance. They're starving for identity, starving for truth, starving for real love, starving for something that lasts beyond death. And Jesus is standing right there, knocking, calling, pleading. I don't want your fame. I want your heart. I left that night knowing that no amount of hate, no amount of mockery, no amount of personal loss would ever compare to the honor of being used by God. I was born for this. Or maybe I died for it. It's been over a year now since I died. Over a year since I left my body, saw hell, and returned with 12 faces I'll never forget. Over a year since I stood in front of a wall of golden plaques that meant nothing in eternity. Since I heard that voice say, "They were known on earth, but not in heaven." And in that time, I've lost almost everything the world once told me mattered. But I've gained something I never thought I'd find. Peace. Not the kind of peace I used to chase through crystals and breath work and mindfulness apps. Not the kind of peace I try to find in money, sex, or accomplishment. This is the kind of peace that only comes when your name is known by the King. When you stop trying to be remembered by people and start being redeemed by God. My name is Malcolm Ryland, and I used to worship fame. I used to work in a system that prints idols and calls it success. I used to think relevance was the goal, that impact was measured in followers, that legacy was the greatest prize. But when I died, I saw the truth. Legacy doesn't follow you into the fire. Only one thing matters. Did you know Jesus? And I say that not as someone who was born in church, not as someone raised in religion. I say that as someone who was ambushed by mercy. I should have been the 13th name in that place. I lived like them. I idolized them. I ignored him. But grace pulled me out, not because I was good, but because he is. And now I can't stay silent. Not when the same system that destroyed those 12 faces is still destroying thousands more. Not when the same deception is still being piped into our homes, our phones, our hearts. Not when so many of us are still trading eternity for applause. So let me speak to you now, not as a preacher, not as a prophet, not as a man trying to scare you, but as someone who barely escaped the judgment I deserved. If you are chasing fame, turn around. If you are obsessed with being seen, remembered, praised, turn around. If you think your image, your talent, your influence will protect you when you die, it won't. Hell is full of people who were celebrated on earth, and heaven is full of people who were ignored here, but intimate with Jesus. The ground is level at the foot of the cross. There are no red carpets in eternity. There is no VIP section in heaven. Only those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And you can be one of them right now, wherever you are, whether you're in your car, on your couch, in a dorm room, or watching this on your lunch break. The King of Kings is reaching for you, not because you're perfect, not because you've earned it, but because you're loved. He wants your heart, not your performance, not your platform, not your perfection, just your yes. I remember the moment I finally said yes to him. Not the kind of yes that sounds spiritual but lives unchanged. Not the kind of yes that goes to church but doesn't let him into your secret life. I mean the kind of yes that wrecks you, that takes your whole life and places it at his feet with no backup plan. If you feel that tug right now, that burning in your chest, don't ignore it. That's him, calling you, pursuing you. He doesn't need you to clean yourself up first. He just needs your surrender. And if you're wondering whether it's too late, whether you've gone too far, let me remind you, if you're still breathing, grace is still available. The gate is narrow, but it's still open. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait until you've built your brand, your business, your dream life, because none of that will matter when your heart stops. Take it from someone who's been on the other side. Death doesn't care how many people follow you, but Jesus cares if you follow him. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, wherever you are, close your eyes. Say his name. Say Jesus. Then say, I surrender. I give you everything. I don't want to end up like those 12. I want to be known by you. I want my name in your book. That's it. That's the start. And if you just prayed that, if you just gave your heart to him, I want to welcome you. You just made the only decision that will matter 100 years from now. Welcome home. But don't keep it private. Tell someone. Find a church. Read the Bible. Ask questions. Throw out what's pulling you back. Delete the idols. Let your yes echo. If you've been watching this and it stirred something in your spirit, comment below and say, I choose Jesus. I surrender. Or even just, I won't end up like the 12. Don't be afraid to be bold. Let the devil hear your voice. Let heaven see your name. And if you've been walking with God already, but you know you've grown lukewarm, distracted, caught up in this world, say, I'm returning. Light my lamp again. Let this be your moment. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now, because eternity is one breath away. And what waits on the other side is real. You don't need to be famous to be known. You just need to be his. I'm Malcolm Ryland. I died. I saw hell. And I came back to warn you. Choose Jesus while there's still time.